I think we're ready now to start with the main event of this afternoon. So a conversation with our two Thinkers 50 awardees. So for those of you not too familiar with Thinkers 50, the Thinkers 50 award was launched in 2001 as the first ever global ranking of management thinkers. The award is published every 2 years, and it is the premier ranking of its kind. I've read a few people comparing it to the Oscars of leadership. It's especially well known in Europe and in the US. And in these two areas, it is the aspiration of every thought leader in leadership development to achieve this recognition. A few of the prestigious winners of the award include people like Peter Drucker. I'm sure many of you are familiar with the Drucker work, like his leadership pipeline. And Michael Porter. Those of you involved in strategy would know the Porter's 5 Forces analysis. So this is really a prestigious award, and a number of South Africans have over the years made the shortlist for the awards. But our two guests this afternoon are the first South Africans to walk away with the top recognition. So a very warm welcome to Dr. Roel Khoza and Dr. Louise van Rijn. It is an incredible privilege to have you both join us today. We're going to start by first getting to know our speakers just a little better. Dr. Louise van Rijn is a social entrepreneur and leadership development practitioner who 14 years ago founded Symphonia for South Africa with a vision of mobilizing active citizenship to solve the intractable issues in our country. She and the team launched the very first Partners for Possibility partnership in 2010. And it has grown from strength to strength to become an internationally recognized and award-winning leadership development program for school principals that also enables active citizenship and nation building while supporting the vision of quality education for all South African children. Louise was awarded the 2021 Ideas into Practice Thinkers 50 Award for her work in Partners for Possibility and Symphonia. Dr. Roel Khoza is a thought leader, entrepreneur, businessman, Africanist, and change agent who's passionate about the transformation of the South African political economy. Roel has been hailed as a role model in respect of the duties and responsibilities that a citizen can and should take on in the public interest. And I love this because this is an area that we at Symphonia are very interested in. Roel's leadership experience is vast, ranging from village leadership in Bushbuckridge to being the chair of several large South African institutions, including the Nedbank Group, the Public Investment Corporation, and Eskom. He was one of the founders of the Black Management Forum, and he's written 4 books on leadership. In late 2021, he was inducted into the Thinkers 50 Hall of Fame. So let's start our conversation today with Dr. Khoza. Roel, congratulations on this incredible achievement. It has been an absolute pleasure for me to have met you recently and to chat briefly on leadership. And reading through your book, Attune Leadership, it is clear to me why you've received this award. As a first question to start the conversation, what does this recognition mean to you? And what does it mean for South Africans?
First, may I take the opportunity to thank you for the invitation. It means a great deal to me. I like sharing ideas. I like learning. I believe in continual learning. And thanks to Louise, because she's the one who actually put my name in the limelight and drew the attention of Thinkers 50 to the kind of work I do in South Africa, which led to the invitation to join Thinkers 50. And thank you very much for the introduction of who Thinkers 50 are, and the 2 leading personalities that you actually put to the fore. It's a great honor to be associated with people of that kind of caliber. We may not be anywhere close, but we are in the same category. So even if we're at the bottom of that entire list, it's quite an achievement. Thank you so much. What does this, or how do I feel about the recognition? May I point out that, in fact, in 1996, the Black Management Forum also awarded me a recognition similar to that. they put me on a bit of a pedestal as a thought leader. And that actually helped a great deal in giving me impetus, giving me imprimatur to actually take the business of thinking very, very seriously. So that was very, very important in terms of actually throwing down the gauntlet to me to say, Ruel, you must care to think. Now, to be awarded the membership of Thinkers 50 takes it to a much higher level. It is essentially an elevation to a global platform, putting you high on a citadel that actually says you had better think now that you've been thinking perhaps nationally or continentally, you had better think globally. Now, the importance of this whole award to me actually says Africa has broken into a class of thinkers. And instead of merely thinking parochially, we had better start thinking globally. We had better start thinking internationally. Now, thinking globally effectively implies you got to think about the big wave of globalization that is engulfing the entire world. But think about it in what manner? In the manner that actually says, as South Africans, as Africans, we got to make sure that at the very least, we benefit from globalization equitably. But at the most, we should actually position ourselves such that we actually benefit advantageously. What would that imply? That would imply serious understanding of mega trends. That would imply serious understanding of what is happening in the so-called developed economies and finding ways to actually position ourselves such that we can, in fact, leapfrog. For far too long, we have been described as emerging. We cannot be forever emerging. We have been described as developing. We cannot be forever developing. There must come a time, and it will take deliberate action. There must come a time when we are described as South Africans as developed. In certain respects, in fact, I believe we're even slightly better developed than some of the Western countries when it comes to issues to do with ethical conduct and ethical behavior. Even writing on such an important issue as corporate governance and governance generally. The likes of Mervyn King actually educates the world. So for that reason, we should never allow anybody to look at us as South Africans with condescension and derision. In due course, they've got to begin to consider us with appropriate awe and respect as citizens that actually can hold their, as global citizens that can hold themselves high on the globe. So that's what, to me, this invitation or the award means. It means South Africa think globally. So South Africa step onto the plate. South Africa make sure that you cease to be viewed with derision and contempt. South Africa, get yourself respected as you should be. But in order to earn that respect, you have to work pretty hard. It is not something that is that is predestined. It is, in fact, our date with destiny. And we've got to make sure that we move in that direction of meeting with that date with destiny.
That is amazing. Thank you so much, Ruel. I've jotted down a few of what you said. You're going to come back. I think it's clear that this award actually places some responsibility on you individually and also on South Africans. So we'll come back to that. But let's first just have an opening introduction from Louise. Louise, as you well know, I have been personally inspired by Partners for Possibility, and I'm so delighted that you received this international recognition for the program. But yeah, the same question for you, Louise. What does this recognition mean to you, and what do you think it means for South Africans?
So there's a big part of me that just wants to say ditto to what Dr. Khoza said just now, but let me just expand a little bit. Dr. Khoza, every time I read anything that you write, I go, it does feel as if you are maybe not my brother from another mother, but maybe my uncle from, I don't know. It just feels like there's such alignment in our thinking. But most people will know that I'm a homecomer. I lived in the UK, had the most amazing job that was literally the pinnacle of my career. And then we decided as a family to come back. And coming back for me was very much about how do we put a spotlight on the beautiful, wonderful things that are happening in South Africa. And so, being, and I mean, you know, I'm a closet academic, so I've always enjoyed my association with business schools. And so to be acknowledged by Thinkers 50 really does feel like an amazing moment, a big highlight in my life. But I'm excited about it for exactly the same reason as Dr. Khoza. I think that Africa has a contribution to the world. We fundamentally understand leadership as relational. We understand humanity. We understand what it means to be attuned to each other rather than and we don't always see, you know, we can't look at all of our leaders and say they understand it, but as Africans, it's in our blood to understand Ubuntu and humanity and a different way of being together. And what we've seen through COVID is that the world is yearning for alternative to the traditional kind of westernized systemic thinking and the idea that we are separate from each other, and we in Africa have something to contribute to the world. So I feel that the days of people going to Harvard and INSEAD to learn about leadership is gone. And so that's why I'm excited about us hosting the African Leadership Week this year and showing the world what Africa has to offer in terms of leadership. It does mean that we have to do the work in our country first, though. We can't say all these things and then look around us and say, oh my goodness, we're not seeing this kind of leadership around the country. But I'm looking forward to playing more of a role internationally with putting the spotlight on what happens in South Africa and then inviting people to come and have a look. And every single time where we've had international thought leaders, whether it's Ben Zander or Margaret Wheatley or any of these people, and they come and they discover what we do in Partners for Possibility, they are awestruck. And so that's what this is about.
That's fantastic. Thanks, Louise. So yes, there's a common view that this is a moment for South Africans to take advantage of, for us to maybe look at our gifts and recognize our gifts rather than perhaps focusing on what's weak. And we do know those challenges. So that's what Louise and Roel are saying. But the reality is that most of the Africans in our country are probably feeling quite disillusioned with leadership at the moment. How can we change that? How can we change that view that people have on leaders, on leadership? And how can we, as we say, actually walk our talk and walk what we are able to do, what's in our blood? Can I go to Roel first? I see, Andre, I see a hands up. I wonder if you could put your question in your chat. I'd love to get questions from everyone, and then we can try and feed those through to Louise and Roel.
Well, thank you very much. That's, in fact, the most cardinal of questions to raise and try to answer. What is leadership about, and how does it manifest itself currently? What might be fundamentally flawed with it? I think that's a huge challenge to all of those of us who care about a country, who care about those that are supposed to be the putative followers, who in certain respects, in fact, are leaders, if only you give them an opportunity to lead. Now, leadership, as I understand it, is about taking people from where they are to where they would desire to be. Now, you've got to do that with persuasion, not coercion, not with misleadership either, because there is such a thing as misleading, masquerading as, sound leadership. So what I believe is essential, where the kind of the leadership that should take us from where we are to our desired destination, to the fulfillment of our desired sense of destiny, says yes. You might feel you have a call to be a leader, but leaders are not just born to the role. They are born, then made. And the making has to do with taking trouble to equip yourself as a leader. And equipping yourself as a leader presupposes learning, presupposes populating your conceptual basket with the kind of concepts that will enable you to lead. You cannot say, I'm a born leader, I'll step in and then I will be able to lead. Not particularly in the 21st century, where you're going to deal with complexity. You cannot deal with complexity ill-equipped. So let the leaders who want to take us from where we are to our desired destination as a nation prepare themselves. And what about the followership? The followership must also be very active. There is such a thing as active following. Active following actually calls the liars to book. It calls even those that tell the truth about the leadership occasionally to book. That's what the citizenry that we're talking about here, citizen leadership, it has to be about. And I don't believe we actually reached that kind of stage. Right now, I'm together with a few colleagues, I'm grappling with the challenge of dealing with agency, justice, and freedom. What do these mean as pillars of our constitution? All too often, a good number of us don't even read that. And I dare say even some of our putative leaders in parliament have not fully read the constitution. They probably have read commentaries, flippant commentaries about the constitution. So I'm suggesting that leadership should mean leading, but leadership predicated on at least two pillars. The first one is competence. If you're not competent, give way. Don't waste the nation's time. The second pillar is ethical conduct. If you're not ethical, if you cannot distinguish between good and bad, right and wrong, step aside. Don't step onto the leadership platform and lead in a manner that is evil, in a manner that is ignorant, in a manner that is actually inimical to the need of the nation. So I want to believe that the kind of leadership that we'd like to see in place should be the leadership that help better position our political economy to effectively compete for the future. Leadership is about readiness to compete for the future. There is a sense in which I feel so despondent lately. I don't believe we're actually ready or we have prepared ourselves to compete for the future. The future holds all manner of possibilities, all manner of potentialities, all manner of good. But it is not something that just happens to you. You should actually first happen to it and actively participate in realizing it. And I want to believe that the kind of leadership that we will cultivate will actually help us in terms of preparation to compete for the future. I want to believe too that the kind of leadership that we'd like to see in place, it should be able to think generationally. It should not be in a position similar to one, I think, or Louis XIV, who said, you know, after me the deluge. We have to bequeath to posterity something better that we found when we arrived here. It behoves us to do just that in all respects, economically, socially, environmentally, philosophically, even legally. It is so important that we think generationally, build the foundation, a good foundation for the future generation, so that even as we make our transition to eternity, we can do so with happiness. Earlier on, I waxed lyrical about the need to make sure that South Africa, Africa, the rest of African countries, and other countries are condescendingly referred to as emerging. And some of them, unfortunately, they've been called emerging, they are submerging. So there is a sense in which you have to do something about stopping the submergence and making sure that the emergence actually has a defined agenda. We cannot be still, emerging in 2030, 2040. That's not permissible. We must be counted amongst the developed in terms of criteria that they fancy, they stack up to. We must stack up to those kinds of criteria as well. So perhaps in a manner of speaking, let me stop there with what concept I have of what leadership means. From those two pillars, I believe will flow all of the necessary things that go for good governance, starting with your integrity, your responsibility, your accountability, transparency as well, because you cannot be opaque as a leader. You got to be transparent. You cannot be a black box and say to humanity, follow me, even though you cannot see through me. So flowing from those two pillars that I actually referred to, competence and ethical conduct, all of those other things that I've just mentioned, including making sure that you're prepared to lead. And we as South Africans, as citizens, we must prescribe who should lead us. You shouldn't just allow any fool emerging from some dark corner saying, I am leader, but not meeting our criteria. We must prescribe that they meet our criteria, but equally, we must also proscribe who should not even have pretensions to lead us.
Fantastic. Well, I think I can listen to you for the entire day, honestly. But I'm going to touch on a few things. I see some beautiful questions coming through. I just want to touch on a few things that you've said now. And one of the things that you said is leaders are not born, they're developed. And there's development of the fellowship, you call them. And then I think in our terms, we talk the fellowship rather, the active citizens, the citizen leaders. So I'm going to put a question to you, Louise, as a leadership development practitioner and very successful. How do we get this right in South Africa to develop the kind of leaders that we want, and to also develop our citizen leaders? And I think together with that question, I'm also in my mind, if thinking that, if we believe that as Africa, we can become a thought leader and a global leader, then we definitely need to build on Africanism, right? And there was a question here about Ubuntu. So perhaps that's a good point. How do we build on Africanism rather than be led by international thought leaders all the time?
So, big question. I, as a leadership development practitioner, believe that the best way for us to develop our skills is to take our own experience seriously. So I'm going to do that with regard to my own experience of being part of Partners Possibility. I have learned so much about leadership and citizenship and reciprocity and followership and all the things that we're talking about, because I've been on the ground, in the trenches, involved with, 3,000 leaders around the country and Partners for Possibility. And a few things that I've learned, and this is the point, that a lot of the people standing on stages, talking at people, thought leadership, those people are not in the trenches doing the work. They are studying the work being done by other people. And so I think there's something about both Dr. Khoza and myself and many, many others. We have developed a new perspective and a new insight because we've been in the trenches. We've been doing the work. We have not had the privilege, maybe, I don't know, the opportunity to just kind of sit back and study other people. We've had to do the work. And from doing the work, a few things have become very clear to me. One is that we have the most amazing people in our country. I mean, beyond anything that the world has ever seen. And what these people yearn for is a call to action. And they have not been called. So if you look at our current government who are saying, you stay out of it, we are leading and you must just do what we tell you to do. That's not what the future needs. It's not how we're going to create the country that we need. So leaders in positions of authority, if they can learn how to invite people to bring their gifts and contribution to the project, then we have a start. So I'm a big, this book is amazing. Every person should read this. But one of the things that Dr. Khoza talks about is attuned leadership. It's about how do we get leaders who are attuned with the people around them, and how do they create that reciprocal relationship of leader and follower, where we're never quite sure who's leading and who's following, because we are co-creating an alternative future. Now, that's another thing that I think we in South Africa have to offer to the world, is we have lived experience of this happening all the time, where leaders have said yes to a call, not knowing, not having the answers, but simply willing to step out of their comfort zone, become part of a community of leaders. And they have created, they've done miracles around the country. We've got 1,500 stories of impact, or more, 1,600 stories of impact around the country with ordinary people. I'll never forget the story, Dr. Khoza, you might enjoy this. Many years ago, someone wanted to pitch Partners for Possibility to Carte Blanche. And the message came back, says, no, this isn't an interesting enough story. If we had Trevor Manuel involved, then it would be very interesting. And I kind of go, you don't get it. You just don't get it. That what we have is 3,000 people who have stepped up and who are leading, and they are igniting leadership everywhere else. And so it's an amazing model for the kind of leadership that we need in the future. And it's not the leadership of people standing on podiums and talking down at people and, having ideas and thinking everybody else is just going to follow. It's the kind of leader that says, join us. It's movement builders. What the world needs more is movement builders. And that's what we've been doing in Partners Possibility. And that's what we need to think about when we think about leadership development, is how do we create opportunities, not for leaders to go and sit in classrooms, but for, at business schools, but for leaders to get into communities, be open, learn from the experience of making a big contributions. We just got a note here in the chat about servant leadership. Exactly. It's about leadership in service. Because we can no longer afford as a country to do leadership development in classrooms, in business schools. We need all hands on deck. And when leaders say yes to the call and they get involved with dealing with the issues in their communities, the opportunity is there for us to create an opportunity for them to learn from that experience. And that's how we're going to develop leadership.
Basically, Risa, I think the main message there, leadership development is not theory, it's practice. And there's an opportunity in our country. And this is often the case when there's environments of challenge. It also means there's lots of opportunity to learn. So there's actually opportunities in our country to go out and develop ourselves into these terrific leaders. I wonder, I see a comment about servant leadership, and I loved what you said about servant leadership in your book, Roel. And I also loved how you spoke about Ubuntu. I wonder if you could just expand on that a little bit for our audience. Your views on service leadership and Ubuntu.
Perhaps start with what is popularly called servant leadership, but perhaps better defined as at your service leadership. The idea is to be at the service of your followers. Now, if you are at the service of your followers, you actually sacrifice. You know, leadership without sacrifice is, in a sense, an expression of a bit of greed. You got to sacrifice yourself. You have to engage in a manner that says, if need be, I'll suffer a bit so that my leadership can actually prevail. My leadership can be catalytic. So servant leadership or at your service leadership is leadership that is catalytic. The elements for all of us to participate are there in the crucible. Now, servant leadership actually steps in as a catalyst to ignite that which are the elements that actually would make for very good leadership. That is my sense of what at your service leadership is about. It actually resonates with the concept of Ubuntu, which philosophically people refer to as Umuntu, Ngumuntu, Ngabantu. Now, it's somewhat difficult to fully translate that, but what it actually says is that we are an interdependent species. If you like, super species, because we are above the elephants and the lions, we are an interdependent species. There is no such thing as me, myself, and I constituting which is fancied to be important, such as René Descartes actually propagated. I think it was in the 17th or 18th century. And I think, therefore I am, cogito ergo sum. You cannot say what you think and imagine in the lonely citadels of your selfish self constitutes humanity. What constitutes humanity is the interdependence. What constitutes humanity is the caring. What constitutes that is actually sharing. The kind of sharing that understands that 2 + 2 is not the mathematical 4. 2 and 2, depending on how creative you are, would equal infinity. And that's what humanity is or should be about. Make sure that you actually work together in a manner that is synergistic, that actually multiplies. Whether you're talking about the economy, or you're talking about culture, or you're talking about education, if you walk alone, very, very soon, in fact, you'll wither and wane into non-existence. But if there is a mutuality between yourself and the other people, there's a mutuality amongst you as members of humanity, you will achieve a great deal. In fact, this lesson has been taught to us somewhat painfully by the pandemic. If you say I'm more concerned about myself and not about the rest of humanity, you'll perish. You got to care about the next members of humanity. Otherwise, you infect them and infect you in turn, and you perish together as fools. That's what Ubuntu is essentially about. Ubuntu is also about the need to think, to listen more. If you go to a king in council in the village, who is supposed to be the putative leader, talks very, very little, listens to all of the members in council, and only steps in to summarize. Now, there is a sense in which whoever our leaders are have to learn to listen. And what we experience lately is them listening to themselves, and to a point where they almost can hear their own applause. Painful stuff. Or alternatively, listen to lackeys, listen to sycophants, listen to people who actually just, are, if you like, praise singers. They never want to listen to vituperators, the ones that actually says, yes, leader, but, and then come up with an assessment that says, in fact, there's quite a bit that you can't see because all of us have got blind spots. And because you are the putative, proud, and arrogant creature, your blind spot is actually bigger than the bit that has vision. And only leaders imbued with the spirit of Ubuntu, with the spirit of understanding interdependence, with the spirit of stewardship, will actually provide that kind of leadership.
Kamla, you can see that the two of us are going to have lots of fun this year with our leadership.
I can see that. I can see massive alignment role between you and Louise's thinking. Just so building a little bit on what Roel is talking about, listening, and I see Andre's got a question here, and he says paying attention to someone is a leadership principle that is captured in Attune Leadership and absolutely in our Partners with Possibility program and Nancy Klein's thinking environment. So Andre would like to know, how can we bring, and I guess, Andre, you're talking about our national leadership. How can we bring attention to the real issues? How can we get our leadership to listen more to what the issues are in the community? So Louise, it's also not an easy question.
No, but this is the thing. So I just want to, there's a question from Martin here. It's Attuned Leadership. Martin, Dr. Khoza has written 4 books, but the one that I think is worth reading, but it's a door stopper. So we are looking at, can we do an essentials of, so it will happen. How can we get leaders? So I want to give an example. So I believe very much in, again, taking our own experience seriously, not kind of just book knowledge. So yesterday, Thinkers 50 announced the radar list, and the South African on the radar list is Lorenzo Davids, who's many of us know him in Cape Town. He's a real movement builder. And Lorenzo has done something over the last few weeks that have just absolutely mobilized Cape Town. And I think that's the kind of leadership that we need. So Lorenzo cares about public transport, and he's distraught about the fact that our public transport system is just being destroyed. And so he wants people back into the trains. And what he's doing is every morning he gets up and he gets on a train, and he doesn't just get on the train, he shares his experience with people in the Western Cape, well, with the world, because he does it on Twitter. And as a result of Lorenzo being on the train, suddenly people are going back to the train this week. So every day someone would post a note saying, Lorenzo, I've been so inspired by your message. I'm on the train this morning as well. And I think that's what it takes. It takes ordinary citizens to say, I care about an issue, and I'm going to invite people into a conversation, and I'm going to invite them to take action, and I'm going to create so what we did with Partners with Possibility, we simply made it relatively easy for people to say, yes, I'll join this program, but this is not the only, there are many examples like that. But it is that call, it's that invitation and the call. And when I do my reflections on the last 10 years and I think about leadership, I think that's maybe the only thing I did, is I created an invitation and I invited people to join something that they could say yes to, where they could then use their gifts to be a contribution. And we just need a lot more of that. Now, the other thing that I don't want to lose the opportunity to quickly read you something. So Dr. Khoza's other book is called Let Africa Lead, worth reading as well. But Attuned Leadership is kind of a follow-up on that. But in this, right at the beginning, start of this book, he wrote something that really I didn't hear him say this, but these words have been kind of calling me to action. So again, talking about my own experience. He wrote this on an aircraft bound to go to Davos. And he said, if not us, then who? If not from Africa, then whence? If not now, then when? If not for Africa and humanity, why not? Let Africa rise to this quintessential challenge. It is our date with destiny. It is Africa's time, and it is our time, every single one on this person on this call, to step up and lead and create the future that we want for our children and our grandchildren and the next 7 generations.
That's lovely. Thank you so much for sharing that with us, Louise, and thank you so much for writing that rule. I want to we have we invited another special guest. It's not on the invite, but it is one of the people that Louise is describing, one of our South Africans who has stepped up. And I would love to introduce you all to one of our alumni on the Partners Possibility program, Dr. Ntombikaisa Mtopo. She is currently, I wonder, team, if we can just put up the slide with Ntombikaisa's picture. She is Deputy Chief Education Specialist in Policy and Planning. She is a lady on the way up. She's an amazing leader. She spent 7 years as principal of Waterloo Primary School in 2016. At primary school in KZN. And in 2016, she accepted the invitation to join the Partners for Possibility program. So welcome, Ntombikaisa. It's lovely to have you here today. So we've been talking now about the importance of leadership practice. You know, leadership is something that is practice. It's not something that is just absorbed in the classroom. And Ntombikaisa, perhaps you can start off first by explaining to some of the people on the call, what does it mean to be a school principal in South Africa? What are some of the leadership challenges that you face you faced on a day-to-day basis?
Thank you, Komla. Thank you to everyone. I appreciate being in this platform where I share my experiences of being a principal. Well, for me, being a principal means being a versatile person. I always say principals are the all-rounders, because when the school pipe bursts, you have to be a plumber. When the child is not feeling well, or when the teacher is not feeling well, you have to be a social worker. In the same path, the Department of Education is expecting you to have quality academic results, because I believe that this is what school is about. There's a lot of challenges that are facing principals. So having to be a principal, I mean, it means you have to have a resilient leadership. However, principals are people who are challenged every day. You know, when you wake up in the morning, you don't know how your day would look like, because you will have your to-do list and you'll end up not even doing one of what you planned in your list because of the challenges that you'll be facing in that particular day. However, I strongly believe that as much as principals challenge, and drawing from what Dr. Koza was saying, that we can't be always saying we are developing, we are growing. And that is also my belief and my intake with leadership. I want to believe that to be a principal, you need to be able to draw positive challenges from the experiences that you are experiencing every day. Therefore, it means you need to stand on the knowing. Now, standing on the knowing is one of the difficult things that a leader might face, because it means being a reader. You need to be a reader in order for you to be updated, to know the current educational issues that are facing the country now. It also means that you need to network. Networking means you need to know the people that are around which are willing to assist us in education. We always say schools do not have money, but we've got organizations that are willing to come to our schools for free. It just means that you need to be able to work harder or extraordinary. It also means checking your attitude now and again, because we've got lots of changes that we are facing, especially in education. So it means you need to be able to check your attitude and be able to now and again think. Thinking is very important in leadership. So for me, being a principal means you need to be a person who is standing on the knowing. Thank you.
So you have been a principal on the Partners with Possibility program. You've experienced it. I know you are a big fan of it. I know you're actually quite keen to get all your principals in your district on the program as well. What do you think is the benefit? What for you has been the benefit of the program? And what will your principals in your district benefit from the program?
Thank you, Komla. For me, well, let me share this story, just a brief story, that when I was recommended in this position as a Deputy Chief Education Specialist, Policy and Planning, one of the things that came into mind for me was where I'm coming from with my experiences as a principal. So I actually looked for Partners for Possibilities in Gauteng because of what it has, the impact it had on me. I had a good experience that enhanced my leadership strategies as a principal. In fact, the experiences that I learned or gained in being in the Partners for Possibilities, I still draw from them even today. When I look back and think of Time to Think module, whereby you are taught that when you're having, for example, a staff meeting, you don't have to respond there and there, because that is what we tend to do as principals. When you are in that hot seat and you are confronted with questions in the staff meeting, we want to portray the picture that you know it all and you want to answer there and there. So for me, being part of Partners for Possibilities has taught me to give myself time to think and to say, I'll come back to you and answer that particular question, because perhaps I need to still read a certain policy about the issue. So it has taught me that I need time to think. And more than ever, as principals, we will always complain of parents not coming on board to assist us in schools. Partners for Possibilities has taught me community involvement strategies. I remember there was a time where we were taught how to involve parents by ensuring that we make learners own up the invitation that we're giving out to parents, whereby learners there'll be a time where there's a cartoon and learners will have to color in that cartoon. In that way, the learner is getting a sense of belonging, also to that particular invitation and owning it up. Then when that particular learner goes home, he or she will be able to give it out to parents because she has also contributed in that invitation. So there's her work in this invitation. And that was working very well for me when I'm calling up parents meeting. The other one was flawless consultation, because more than ever, principals are people who are dealing with human beings every day. So you need to have communication skills. And it's always not easy when you are dealing with certain people, even at school, who you are living with every day. So The flawless consultation will teach you how to contract with a teacher. A teacher that is very challenging at school. How do you then sign a contract with that person? Because now and again, as principals, with department policies, you always want to act on the policy and ending up stepping into people's toes. Now, flawless consultation will make you feel at ease into ensuring that you are doing the right thing. So for me, Komla, when I invited Partners for Possibilities in our district, it was a matter of ensuring that principals are being capacitated. I mean, we're not born as leaders. We still need to be assisted in our everyday lives of leadership. So the few modules that I have just mentioned are some of the things that made me want Partners for Possibilities to come into our districts and ensure that the principals, the challenges that principals are faced with, they are capacitated with strategies on how to deal with them. Thank you.
I have to say I've gone completely over time. I've just been so captivated by our three speakers. I wanted, Andre's been so keen to contribute to the discussion. So Andre, if you want to quickly, I don't know if it was a comment or a question that you had, here's your opportunity.
Thank you, Kamala. Well done, Louise and Dr. Khoza. Your example inspires me today and every day to get a little bit better every day. But the question and the comment that the comment and the question, you know, Dr. Khoza, you keep teaching us about recognizing our dignity and then recognizing the dignity of others when we've achieved Sing It Here first. And Louise made that experience real during my PFP journey. But can you talk a little bit to end us off on this fundamental principle of leadership to dignity and how we can rehumanize leadership in our country? Because I think we're there in so many places, as is the Lorenzo case study, as is the case study with the World Economic Forum recognizing Marlon Parker and his wife on the Schwab Foundation for Social Entrepreneurship. Can you just talk about how we bring back the seeing dignity and recognizing dignity in how we lead? Thank you.
Shall we put that question to you, Dr. Khoza?
Yeah, I think that's so fundamental. Human dignity. And that's what all humans actually have, regardless of their standing. You will be amazed at what recognizing human dignity does to people. If you allow me, I could just give you a little anecdote. Shortly after Sisulu, I'm talking about the father, Sisulu was released from prison. I met with him somewhere in the center of Johannesburg. I took a beeline to him because, I mean, for me, he epitomized what I considered to be the kind of leadership, at your service leadership, that should we should be learning from. So I went to greet him. That was sometime in 1989. I think they got released before Nelson Mandela. And I greeted him and introduced myself. And he looked at me with a wry smile and said, "You don't have to introduce yourself." I got a little bit worried, you know, what sin have I committed? He says, "But I know you." And I asked myself the question, but who am I to be known by Walter Sisulu? And then he went on to say, "Look, I actually read 3 of your articles whilst in prison." And I said to myself, there's hope. If you're talking about imbuing a youngster as a father with dignity. Nothing could actually have imbued me with the kind of human dignity that I so yearned for. But that was not enough. 9 months later, we meet again, and I make a beeline to him again and greet him. And because he's the elder in the equation, he is the true achiever in the equation. He's the parent in the equation. He meets with so many people. I introduce myself again. And he says, stop. 9 months ago, I said, don't. I know you. You're Ruel Khoza. In addition to the 3 articles that I read when I was in prison, I know that you actually facilitated the securing of offices for the ANC as it returned to South Africa. So I know you. And then we engaged in small talk following that. My conclusion was, standing at the gate into the kingdom of leadership, you will not find the angel Gabriel standing there. You will find the angel humility. So you talk about human dignity. Human dignity is about human rights. It should be pervasive. No one should look upon another person condescendingly, because human dignity is divinely bestowed. I may be the least of followers, but that does not make me less human. So human dignity, paramount. And I wish, we could actually disseminate that kind of information from early education, where the principals actually play such a role, that respecting the individual and respecting significant and so-called insignificant others is at the root of conferring human dignity to other humans, and it is fundamental to nation building.
Thank you, Ro. I see that we are quickly running out of time. I want to just create a small opportunity for some connection. You've all listened to amazing conversation. We've heard this wonderful aspiration for us as South Africans and for Africa to become global leaders and not the followers, to stop emerging and to stop developing and get there. I think that's a beautiful, beautiful vision. We've heard leadership, which is so core, so critical to solving the big issues in our country. We've heard how it can be done in practice. Louise has won an award for Partners of Possibility, a leadership development that is development in practice. You go into the field and you learn and develop as a leader. We've learned and we've heard a beautiful story from Ntombi Kaisa about our own personal experience in Partners of Possibility and what that means, what that meant for her, what it would have meant for the 30 to 40 educators in her school, potentially 1,000, I think you said 1,400 kids in your school, Waterloo and Ntombi Kaisa, what that would have meant for all those individuals. So I think that there's lots of possibilities, and I would love to just create a short opportunity for everyone to go into a breakout group. It's part of our learning to reflect on what we've heard. And the question that I have, and I'm going to put it in the chat book, in the chat box. So having listened to this wonderful conversation, what do you feel is yours to do? What is moving and bubbling and stirring within you? So Tanya, our tech master, can you please send everyone back to the breakout rooms? Can we do it for 8 minutes, please? Because we don't have a lot of time left. Welcome back, everyone. I think that's everyone back from the rooms. We only have 3 minutes. So in closing, I want to thank, with such deep appreciation, our 2 Thinkers 50 awardees, Louise and Ruel. It was fantastic to have you. Thank you for saying yes to our invitation. And Ntombi Kaisa, I love listening to you. You are inspiring, my dear. So thank you so much for joining. our tech support, Tanya, Dorcas, Fez, Tembi, Zara, thank you so much for keeping everything going. There's a lot going on behind the scenes, guys. I don't know if you know that. And of course, the audience, thank you for your engagement. Thank you for your questions. I know we didn't get around to everyone's question, but it was just lovely to see your faces, and I could tell that everyone was engaged and enjoying it. So thank you so much. I think what we would like to do as we close off is just to invite you all. We are, of course, the team responsible for rolling out Partners for Possibility in South Africa, and we want to do more work in our schools and our communities. And we would love to invite you to join us in this. So if you would like to find out more, there is an email address that's going to be popped onto the screen. Please reach out, and yeah, let's work together and create the future we want. Thank you, everyone.